So, back at it, uno más, ahora, because we need to go over this for the last part of it. This is the final chapter and the epilogue. I really want to go over the epilogue. I think it's really important that we understand what the young lady was trying to contend. Mind the fact that I will be fair. Once again, and I've been fair. There's poor white people who struggle every day. They've been here since day one in the country. They've been struggling since day one. With that said, all those people, they either fell into one of several classes. One is the original, what we would call squatter, right? Because if there were waste people from Britain, they couldn't be waste people here too. That doesn't make sense. Outside of them, then you have the Indian fighters, those who came here and fought Native Americans. Almost primarily, that's all they did. Okay. So then outside of them, you have your sea merchants. They're important people. But once again, a lot of these jobs are those jobs overshadow a poor white person. And then once again, how many poor white people are there if you have these industries? Somebody has to work these industries. You have to give a livable wage to a person. These are things that you have to think about and take into consideration when you consider white trash. Is it unfair to say that they struggled or anything like that? No, it's not. It's not unfair. It's accurate to say that they struggled. But what is also accurate to say is that part of a larger part of their struggle was self-inflicted. When you come here and you're predisposed to raping the native indigenous population women, gambling, drinking, right? On top of the fact that you don't want to garden at all. I mean, think about this. Think about how easy it is to grow potatoes. I want y'all to really think about this. You're telling me of all the people that came here, none of them brought proper seeds from back home, that back home didn't send the seeding here for the people to do the work with? I want y'all to really think about this. Because how they'll present it is that, once again, white people have never had a chance. This book is a form of placating them not doing anything in 400 years. And despite what they want to say, free blacks established a place that was called Black Wall Street in less than 60 years after being slaves. Less than 60. So regardless of whatever people, and there was no government aid given, there was just the ability to do business and conduct their business within obviously a white country. So if people want to, demean you for bringing up like a Black Wall Street, where else would black people have had something? They haven't had anything anywhere in hundreds of years. So it would be disrespectful to overlook places like Rosewood and Black Wall Street. It's highly disrespectful. However, we're on chapter 12 called Slumming, Slick Willie, and Sarah Palin. Here we go. A dangerous chasm in the classes is alive and well in the United States of America. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. This is by Carolyn Chute, The Beans of Egypt, Maine, revised 1995. Now, a lot of people want to say whatever. I'm not going to get carried away in this one because this is more modern time, whatever, jargon. What I wanted to do was find a Here we go. So check me out. This part about Bill Clinton could have been in the epilogue when she talks about giving the hillbilly or the redneck a makeover, you know. And it says right here, page 298, Clinton's election did what the earlier non-elite Southern presidents could not. Did you hear that? She says for sure Clinton comes from a family of elite Southerners. The other Southerners that came from the South did not come from elite families. Thank you. Turning crackers and rednecks into something that mainstream America could embrace. The Texas-born New York editor of Bubba magazine described Bubba as someone who is patriotic, religious, enjoyed a dirty joke, but cut across socioeconomic groups and experimenting, and expressing an identity. Bubba wasn't regionally based then and defied stereotypes about cultural upbringing normally associated with an ethnic identity. To be a Bubba was to adopt a leisure self, to put, a thing put on and worn like a dungaree or a trucker's cap. There we go. Take off your suit and tie and dress down a la redneck, or dress down like a redneck. One might call it white trash slumming. It was just one more attempt to downplay class by anointing and electing Bubba as the new common man. No, stop. Right there. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. That's not what it was. He didn't do what no other person couldn't do. He did what they had all been doing all along, which was saying that this dirty white dude is a normal white dude. Yeah, he got missing teeth and he chews tobacco and he sleeps with his sister, but he's normal. He's one of us. He's the one that we're going to send out to go get killed. See, this book is about them justifying their cannon fodder and why they've kept their cannon fodder in such a lulled state. And I had to wait to part 3 to get here to say this to you. See, the idea that once again they would impose white thuggery ever would it mean that the poor white people were always thugs. You can't grow those habits. You understand? You can't grow those habits. When people see that black people commit crimes against one another, well, first off, these people normally come from warrior cultures. So they're going to handle things like warriors handle them. They're not savages, they're warriors in many respects. However, I'm not going to get into that. What I'm talking about is white trash and how just reading between the lines, we can understand that a person actually attempts to normalize the violent nature of a class of people that have been and existed here for a long time. Now, what I want you guys to understand is that what makes you think that those press gangs with their great sticks didn't press gang people onto ships to America? Right. Think about it. So no matter how it's put and formulated, to call them white trash or whatever, well, what else were they ever? The rich white people, they're liars, cheaters, conniving, manipulators. They abuse others at a moment's notice. So once again, and then they have this grandiose form of narcissism on top of all that. And these are normally the rich white people. The people right under them are those who see that they're one swindle move, one dirty lie, one act of foolery away from a potential man-made fortune. You see, I heard from a Gentile man one time, and he was dead serious. He said 10 years of hard work can yield overnight success. And what this man was speaking was, if you work hard at something, even though it seems like it's not going to happen, it could eventually happen overnight for you because you've put in all the work to make it happen. See, these people who are on top don't have that mentality. The people who come from the bottom to get to the top, who actually work to get there, have that mentality. So this is why you have the classes of the white man who fought for slaves to be free, because they seen free blacks who weren't lazy, who were not they were not unintelligent people. They were learned. They were very learned. Probably some of the most learned people that they had ever met, if not ever met. And so this is just one of those things that we have to consider when weighing into the situation as to how the magnitude of saying that they're poor whites. A shout out to a Mr. BGS because I read this book. I wouldn't even be on this tandem right now had the gentleman not said anything while I was on a hangout many moons ago. However, uh, the whole point of this is that I knew then, just like I knew now. The idea of a person being a poor white is an excuse, but how he leveled the information was as if it was to be adversarial to what I was saying. Regardless, I couldn't care less. Um, has anyone ever noticed that they've taken an inordinate amount of time and energy once again to dehumanize all other people? And then hold on, as if that's not enough, they they do you know why you don't see a lot of mixed people running around America right now? And I know a lot of y'all are like, where the hell did this come from? And then I'll come back to it. It's because a lot of them got killed during the Civil War. Um, I'm gonna say a lot of them, a whole bunch of them got killed during the Civil War. Um, a big part of the Civil War was to thin out the ranks of the mulattoes and to thin out the ranks of those who were, even part black, quadroons. Um, a lot of those white boys were obviously, white skin, but there was a lot of them who were not white boys, who just looked like they had white skin. And because of this, we're quick to overlook this. But the term cracker, if you listened to the book earlier, I said it denotes a person who might not be exactly white. So, in the narrative, Cracker Joe, whose mother was of good blood or good stock, meaning that his father wasn't, meaning that his father was either mixed or black. We're going to say that he was black, seeing the fact that Joe had a daughter who was a mulatto later. And once again, they mean that Joe, this cracker, who's obviously not black, is dealing with black people. These are things you have to consider when you hear about a man like Andrew Jackson or like Abraham Lincoln being considered a cracker. You understand? Um, um, these are things you do have to look at and pay into close consideration. Consider the fact that Thomas Jefferson's wife, who was a quadroon or quarter black, a woman who obviously, no matter what age she was old enough to beget children. She comes from generations of people. Her mother would have been half. The person before that would have been full. So this is three generations. Understand? The whole point is this: is that um, four generations before Jefferson, there were people already blood mixing with the slaves. This is a huge thing because what you have to realize and recognize is that many of the white people that you're looking at, the ones who are pure thoroughbred white people, can't normally have children. They have fertility issues now. The white race is an exaggerated number due to the fact that many of the people that you're looking at are people who actually have black ancestry. And black ancestry, I mean by people who look like me or like yourself, and then people who have long straight hair with darker skin, and then people who have the the loose curls that bush out a lot more. with darker skin. And then sometimes you have the people with the beady hair, with the super tight little beads, and the darker skin. However, that's neither here nor there. Um, that's to add to the situation of the cracker, to add to the situation of white trash. White trash aren't exactly white people. So understand that when they use a term, they're using a term to blanket the fact that most of them know that they have tainted genetics in their minds. You see. However, though, um, there's the overlooking of many things. Um, um, there we go. We're going to look at. Here we go. Here we go. About Sarah Palin. 1 second. The Alaskan made an easy and attractive target. Journalists were flabbergasted when she showed no shame in displaying astounding lapses in knowledge. Her bungled interview with NBC host Katie Couric represented more than gotcha journalism. Palin didn't just misconstrue facts, she came across as a woman who was unable to articulate a single complex idea. The old clacker slur, as idle headed, seemed to fit. Now, stop it. To call her cracker headed, and for us to know that in the book she called people who were crackers not exactly white people, well, why are you considering them white trash? Understand, the this is all one big play on words. This is to make white people who hate the fact that they have, once again, I'm not sure if any of you have ever heard this. It's a real dirty ass joke, but white men would tell other white men sometimes. Uh, 1 second. You think a little what? No, I think your mom might have came and sat on my face, but that's okay though. Anyhow, uh, as I was saying, they're trying to make it seem as if this cracker and this what is it, what's the word I'm looking for, this cracker and this white trash or redneck are like the same person, and they're not the same identity, but she's interchangeably using words so that way she can bolster her argument. The argument is not bolstered. You know, it's actually diminished if a person read the book and remember that. But because I took my time to read the book slowly, things like that jump out at me. Um, Here we go. Here we go. 1 second. Shooting wolves from a small plane, bragging about her love of moose meat, Sarah from Alaska positioned herself as a regular Annie Oakley on the campaign trail. Now understand this right here. The argument was not that Sarah Palin was white trash. It was just that she was politically inept and didn't know anything about the world of politics. And because of that, she wasn't qualified to be the vice president. If a man, Mr. John McCain, who at the time was 71 years old, had passed away within his tenure in the White House, that was the argument for Sarah Palin. Okay, this is not brought up in this book. However, that is something that you would have to know by following it. I followed the entire thing when I was a teenager. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it wasn't like the woman couldn't articulate a complex idea. It was when she was asked about things that pertained to matters that she was not educated on, she just knew nothing. However, this is just a matter of formality, and this is how they attack. 1 second. Show. 1 second. I'm not sick. I'm just who I am. You're here. You're here, world of wonder. You know what I'm saying? And why are black people always picking on white people? Why can't we? I'm not picking on white people. This is a review of a book, dude. You feel me? I don't even care about this kind of stuff that I've been doing my reviews, but I happen to look up and see you over there. How you doing, Tammy Browser? Ignore Schmuckatelli in the comment section. Ignore everything he says. Act like he is not there. Can you dig it, sister? Thank you very much. However, this book is what I'm talking about, big dog. So I understand you feel like I'm coming at white folks, but really I'm not. I haven't said anything outside of the context of what the book has said. Not one thing. Well, if I call them not humans, the book won't say that, but the book does say that in its own way. However, we're not even going to go there. Let's just go ahead and here we go. Page 306. This is about Sarah Palin again. And here we go. Favorite former TV talk show host Dick Cavett wrote a scathing satirical piece in which he dubbed her serial syntax killer, whose high school English department deserved to be draped in black. He wanted to know how her swooning fans, who adored her for being a mom like me or were impressed to see her shooting wolves, could explain how any of those traits would help her govern. Now understand, that was the whole issue. When this lady spoke on what she just said before, let's just turn one page back real quick, right? And she says that she made an easy target because what she was doing made her seem like some kind of Annie Oakley. That doesn't really marry up with the fact that this man was attacking the lady for not having merit to be within the political realm on the highest levels. Thank you very much. So here we go. Here we go. I love it. Here we go. We had been down this road before as citizens and voters. Honest Abe Lincoln was called an ape, a mudsill, and Kentucky white trash. Andrew Jackson was a rude, ill-tempered cracker, and like Palin, his grammar was nothing to brag about. Hold on, but you're talking about a whole nother different time, in history. And, and then you're talking about when there aren't cameras. Does she weigh that into the place? No, there's no internet when those guys were around back then. No, it was he who could rule under the strength of his own fist, of his own hand. That's what you maintained and had. And once again, who does she think was fighting the Indians, the Native Americans, the savage or the barbarians or the mongrels, as she puts it in the book? Once again, this is what a white woman said about other people. And I'm not complaining about the fact that she dehumanized groups of people, just to do, as she did. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, and this is the thing, is we have a major misunderstanding with a person like a Sarah Palin. Once again, you don't get to be the governor just because you were Miss Alaska or something like that. Like, there obviously was some level of merit, whether she got all the moms in Alaska behind her or got all the women behind her. I mean, that's polarizing the base. That's no different than what anybody else does. So when she accuses Sarah Palin of being like this, but then she praised Donald Trump in a sense of being able to go after the base of the forgotten Americans and how he was the redneck candidate or whatever, it's just like one of those things where it's like, please, the injustices are just what they are. Um, um, I would like to say this right here, though. If anybody wants to challenge me on this little piece right here, let me go and dig up the page and about this man's wife. 1 second, because they were not fond of a Miss Rachel Jackson. And that right there is like something. I mean, like, you guys gotta understand, like, this is the wife of the president. You know what I'm saying? Um, um, and she's talking about this man right now, right? But she's not talking about how he was actually married to a black Indian woman. That's what she was. I can't stress it enough. I gotta find it real quick. 1 second. Where he took what he wanted. One moment. And this is what they just can't stand, you know, is our ability as people to tap into what we know and and portray that, you know. I love the fact that that this book is built the way that it is, because once again, a person who's reading it will read it and then they'll forget, you know. Um, they'll forget what they're reading and seeing because they have no choice but to. They're being bombarded with all these so-called facts and all this information, and I guess one of the biggest issues. 1 second. I thought I had it bookmarked, but I had the wrong page bookmarked, so I just got to find it real quick. But but it's just amazing because how it's written is it's meant to throw us off. You know, it's meant to make us think one thing, and then you'll be like, hold up, didn't she say something else differently though? And then you'll go back and you'll be looking at it, and you'll be like, she did say something different. But then you're like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You'll be like, she said something that's against that, and so it's not the same thing. And many people, you know, don't want to come into the recognition that, like, when you use people in history, from history, to protect a point of view or a particular argument, you actually have to stay there. Um, 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 and then you have to go back to all those different things over and over. Once again, it's just like cherry picking. Um, Here we go. So we're going to find where it accuses Mr. Jackson of stealing a woman that's not his. And this is just one of those things. Here we go. And I just found the page 127. I had to go back this far. And an ever expanding script dealing, and this is the first paragraph going into the second. And the ever expanding script detailing Jackson's misdeeds, adultery was just one more example of his uncontrolled passions. Listen to that, uncontrolled passion. She didn't just call that lawlessness or abomination. She passed that off as a passion, and it was just uncontrolled. However, wife stealing belonged to the standard profile of the backwood aggressors who refused to believe the law applied to him. And failing to respect international law, he conquered Florida. In disregarding his wife's first marriage contract, he simply took what he wanted. Jackson invaded the sanctity of his neighbor's matrimonial couch, as the Ohio journalist Charles Hammond declared. All sorts of vicious names were used in demeaning Rachel Jackson. She was called, listen, an American Jezebel, weak and vulgar, and a dirty black wench. Stop. You're not going to call her a black wench if she's not black. Understand me. She smoked tobacco, all kinds of stuff. And y'all really don't get, man, like, this is the same kind of chick who was like Sheba off of damn Django, you know, when he was like, everybody out the room. And then he look over at her, he's like, Sheba, you stay where you're at. She's like, I know you didn't mean me, looking ass. That's the kind of chick Rachel Jackson was. That was her. That's her. Did that chick not smoke cigarettes? Understand me, yo. Like, y'all gotta really get it. Like, really get the whole thing. Follow the whole big picture here. These are not just make believe whatevers. And then just to go back to the point of why they're trying to pick on Sarah Palin is because she's not politically adept. She's not. She didn't know anything. That's why you haven't heard nothing about her being in politics ever since. Okay. If you really wanted to know, she was a lackey, so that way the Democratic Party could win. But that's neither here nor there. Uh, 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 the fact that they could compare her to a man who was married to a woman that they were calling an American Jezebel, a black wench, you understand, weak and vulgar. These are just little things for you to look at. They're comparing these two different characters, though, as if they're the same kinds of people, and they're not. A dude like Andrew Jackson would he would be a normal white boy right now. Abe Lincoln would be a normal white boy. Only back then were they looked down upon so much because they were dudes who supposedly had humble upbringings. Yet they owned slaves. So what are you saying? Right. And Andrew Jackson vehemently hated natives and blacks almost until the day he died, and they claim he made some kind of statement saying, you know, he thought blacks and Indians and whites would be in heaven together. And I'm just like, man, get the fuck out of here. Who cares about what this white dude said? Who even cares? Once again, this book is an attempt to justify all the facts that they have never ever wanted to really face up with. The first one is they're lazy. The second one is they're murderers. Third one is they're thieves. Fourth one is that they're conniving. And the fifth one is that they are liars. Straight up, all out. And don't care to lie to you. Will lie right to your face. You know what I'm saying? I just want y'all to think about something. I couldn't find it. I've been looking for it for days, but it's a page in this book where she explains that the bad nature of the backwood redneck rubbed off on free blacks, so much so that they were calling certain blacks black rednecks. So promiscuity, adultery, leaving your children, rampant gambling. You see what I'm saying? Backwood fighting, all out being violent. They learned these traits from these backwood white people. And they say that black people are animals or this, that, and the other, but what else were they supposed to do than to defend themselves from these white people? These are the same white people that were impregnating other black men's wives and making these black men to raise the children. And then people wonder why this black man then killed the white man and then ran to up north somewhere. You know, these were things that happened, but she doesn't explain that situation. She doesn't explain the harsh reality of a white mother with a mulatto baby. She doesn't talk about that in this book. It's not even so. When she talks about white trash and class and, you know, totally skips over all these other things, it's disrespectful. It's a disrespectful notion when they could speak on the fact that white slave owners would lay with the woman slaves, but won't talk about homosexual activity from the slave owners to the slaves, or homosexual activity from women mistresses in the house to the slaves. And when I say women mistresses or madam, I'm talking about the woman of the house who's a white woman coming out there and making sexual advances on women slaves in the house and in the field. This book doesn't cover none of that, but it should. If you're going to talk about the sexuality of the classes of the people, see what I'm saying? And for it to, once again, to overlook, to overreach all that, and to say that black slaves starved white people out of labor, when white people had the ability when they first got here to have the industry of, you, okay, you know what? You gave me 50 acres, but only 3 acres of it are really good. Right. That's how it was supposed to have been. It wasn't supposed to have been this, I don't know what people think it is. Right? You're talking about there were slave owners with thousands of acres and thousands of slaves, and they couldn't tend to all the land. Only so much of the land was actually usable. That's why the land is beat up now in some of these motherfucking states, because they were just atrocious to the land. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what they were doing when the land was totally fertile. You know what I'm saying? Did these guys learn how to irrigate waters from swamps to lesser nourished lands? No, they did not. They learned how to do none of that. But they want to drain a swamp and then not use that hydration for anything, as if it's totally useless. Stupid. Stupid. But once again, white trash though. have the audacity to complain about their position, their station in this country. They were never supposed to be anything other than what they are, a subservient role over the slave. That's it. That's it. And they were supposed to have enough discipline to not blood mix with the slaves. How? Right? It's simple. They disobeyed their station, and this lady is trying to somehow exempt what they did as an understandable action, but it's not. They beat slaves to death for running away. They whipped them to death. They cut limbs off. Right on. They would horribly dismember their family members if they did things like this. So it's just one of these things where I have a hard time understanding how a person uh how a person you know could could uh could uh could even talk like this. This is this book is just is something else. Now let me let me jump forward real quick a couple pages, and then okay, here we go. Bam. We're going to page 308. Oh no, bam, stop. I found it. Yo. I found that spot I was just talking about. This is crazy. Page 308, and here we go. Sowell contended that there had been an unchanging subculture going back centuries, relying on Grady McWhinney's Cracker Culture, 1988, a flawed historical study that turned poor whites into Celtic ethnics, Scots-Irish. So she's saying that they're not Scots-Irish. Sowell claimed that the bad traits of blacks, listen, laziness, promiscuity, violence, bad English, were passed on from their backcountry white neighbors. Now, are you hearing this? This is why she's calling it unhistorical, unfactual. Are you hearing that? And Sowell's odd recasting of the hinterlands, a good old eye-gouging fight, was the seed of black machismo. Reviving the squatter motif, he downplayed the influence of slavery and substituted it for a eugenic-like cultural contagion that spread from poor whites to blacks. Stop. She tried to blame slavery on all those things. Are you hearing me? Laziness, promiscuity, violence, and bad English. She tried to blame on slavery. But the man is saying that slaves actually didn't speak. Are you hearing this? It wasn't his version of whitewashing it. All slaves weren't raised by all the same kinds of people. Y'all do understand this, right? So let's say your slave owner didn't have a Southern drawl because they weren't from the South originally. So they spoke to you in a very, I don't know, posh English, very uppity tone. You would talk like that. If the overseers over you spoke clear English, you would speak clear English. The man is speaking on the fact that they learned these traits from the white overseers, no matter how you place and put this. Blacks could not have been prone to laziness if they built the nation and they built the country. It's impossible. It makes no sense. You see what I'm saying? It makes no sense. It makes no sense like this dude, World Wonder, coming here and speaking the nonsense that he spoke. It makes about as much sense as that, you see? But that's how we know we're doing something right. That's how I know that I've done something right, that I've angered the Indo-European community to come in to check out an obscure channel and an obscure video about information that they can go get. They can go read the book. But I just wanted y'all to hear that she tried to put it off as if it was fake, but that's really what happened. All those nasty traits Black people learn from white people. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. How could you be a docile, submissive creature and be prone to violence at the same time? It doesn't make sense. You could be volatile in a sense, but I don't think you're prone to violence. No, no, no. That doesn't something that's volatile, energies, many forms of energies that are volatile, doesn't mean that they have the created purpose of destroying or causing destruction or harm, for that matter. So when a person says these things and they contend them against an entire group of people, whereas to almost once again placate white overseers, white slavers, and blame everything that blacks do and go through on themselves. But they're a class of people. And she has yet, once again, to identify that class as a victimized class in this book ever once. Moving forward, we're going to talk about Alex Haley and how she did him wrong. Oh my goodness. With his revisionist pen, he cut the tie to Africa. The writs forged by Haley, this is page 309, and replaced the noble African American progenitor with the debased cross-pollinating power. Degenerate crackers of white America. A corpse of pundits exists whose fear for the lower class has led them to assert the unbred, perverse, white as well as black, are crippling and corrupting American society. Now we're gonna go into this whole Alex Haley thing because she tries to get off on this dude. Okay, she tried. Like when I say she tries to get off on bruh, like when I say she tries to get off on bruh, she tries to get off on dude. You understand? And the shit is crazy because like you really don't see it coming because like the way that she tries to throw it out there is like it's all good. Like, you know, I'm not really sweating it. One second, hold on. Let's go back a couple pages. This is just a few pages back. But she says that, you know, she calls him a fake, a phony, and a fraud in so many words. And she says that the book Roots is all fake, right? But once again, it can't be all fake if what's the damn word? If there's people that she can quote from his book, right? That that are real people. So here we go. One second. One second. I'm back. Just another what? 10 is this it? I mean, she only talks about him like a couple times, but like here we go. Here we go. She goes in on bruh. When I say she goes in on bruh, she goes all the fuck in on this dude. And it was crazy because like I didn't think she was gonna do it. Page 272. Historical fictions provided a solution for cultural longing. Stop! Stop! Wow! Oh, your granddaddy was in the movie? Oh, right on. That's tight. That's tight. Check this out. She says historical fictions provided a solution for cultural longing. She doesn't speak on the fact that the same dirty white people who were white trash in her book helped strip and take away the culture of the people, their identity, and all self-knowledge. Hold on. And somehow it's a historical fiction, right? Yet she's saying, 1 second. Where's it at? She's saying that like it's all fake, right? But I'm gonna read something to you about one of the guys that she tries to say, and then I just think it was weird because you say that it's not real, but yet you're talking about this same dude. So listen to this. It's this guy named Thomas Lee, right? Now she says, right here, page 273, and we'll just pick it up right here. The birth dates of Kute Kinte's American progeny were wrongly given, and Haley attributed to his family tree the names of people to whom he was unrelated. Neither the white nor black families archived in roots matched existing historical records. As to his descent from the white Lee family of North Carolina, Haley completely invented a villainous character named Tom Leah, who raped Kute Kinte's daughter, Kizzy, Haley's alleged direct ancestor. Now, listen, this makes Alex Haley a white man. If you really understand the implications of what he's saying, that means he's white in black people's skin. But we're going to move forward. She's saying that he raped Kute Kinte's daughter, Kizzy, Haley's alleged direct ancestor, and betrayed his own mulatto son, Chicken George, by selling off his family. She says this could not have occurred because historical Thomas Lee was already dead by that time. And Lee was not, in fact, Haley's Poe Cracker, but a prosperous landowner with 16,000 acres and numerous slaves. Some of his relatives held prestigious political offices. Listen. That makes him all the way wrong to her? Because he's wrong about a few. I mean, understand. It's one thing to totally make something all the way up. It's another thing to believe that you are actually associated with something and to believe it. You know how many times white scientists have associated something improperly, but they're not getting called works of fiction. They were just called improper hypotheses. Right. So this is just one of those things where, so for them, it's just a theory. But for this man, it's a bona fide lie. And that's just something that I wanted y'all to hear, right? Now something that I wanted to talk about real quick, where she says Toby slash Kute Kinte, right? And she says that Toby wasn't his real name and this, that, and the other. What I want y'all to get is this. Toby, the book of Tobit, his son Tobias, which is actually pronounced Tobias, if you know anything about the Greek Latin language. So Toby, which is short for Tobias or Tobit, is a proper name for a real Hebrew. Can you dig it? But we're not going to get carried away on that right now. They think that we're all Africans, so there's no need to, to argue that point. But did you hear how Alex Haley said that ultimately his progeny was a white man? These are the kind of things that you have to understand. And if you look at a picture of Alex Haley, he doesn't look like he grows facial hair that he has to shave off the side of his face. Got a completely smooth face. So I don't think that all of it is bullshit that she's saying about the man. I just don't think that his whole story is erroneous and fabricated. There's a lot of so-called black people with white man, not just a white woman, but a white dude in their family. Like, and he ain't just a white dude in their family. It's like they granddaddy. You know what I'm saying? There's a bunch of them like that. And people don't want to come to the conclusion of all this, but it's just what it is. So here we go. This is page 302. Figuring out Clinton remained a favorite pastime. In 1998, looking on with horror at the trumped-up presidential adultery scandal, the novelist Toni Morrison drew her own conclusions. The violation of privacy, the ransacking of the presidential office when he was metaphorically seized and body searched, was for her kind of treatment of black men faced. No matter how smart you are, how hard you work, you will be put in your place. Clinton had overreached. He was our first black president, Morrison mused. The tropes of blackness were apparent in his upbringing in a single parent and poor household, in his working class ways, his saxophone playing, and love for junk food. This Clinton really was Elvis-like. He was not the redneck Elvis who still had devotees in the 1990s, but the hillbilly cat Elvis of the 1950s, the youth who had transgressed the boundaries between black and white, something that was only possible to do and comfort among the lower ranks of Southern society. Clinton's title of first black president was reaffirmed at 2001 Congressional Black Caucus dinner when Barack Obama ran for president in 2007. Andrew Young, the Carter advisor, who had been a friend to Dr. Martin Luther King, said that Clinton was every bit as black as Barack. Wow! See, this is the kind of shit that we don't get to hear and they don't talk about. How strange was that? The son of a kingdom man was less black than Bubba from Arkansas. Young was treating blackness as a cultural identity, and Obama's childhood in Hawaii and Jarka lacked Dixie roots. See, understand this. Understand this. This is how deep this shit goes. They're not going to tell you this because they don't want you to know this. They don't want you to feel this way. This is what once again, they'll call a white dude more black than a Kenyan dude. Come on, man, please. Let's skip forward to some of these beautiful epilogues. That's the end of that chapter. The epilogue. The long legacy of white trash. Wow. Now, once again, she makes it seem like it's about class, but she interweaves race so hard into it. Do y'all see how she does it? Is it about class or is it about race? Natanya Judah, if you're reading this book and you think that this is not about race, you're not being honest with yourself. This is every bit about race as it is about so-called class. It's not about class as much as it is about how they justify class through all these other means. Now see how you can't be a frontiersman, you can't be a hardy American fighting savage Indians and barbarians, and at the same time be a husbandman of the land. You can't be, once again, you can't do both. You can't do both. You can't overwhip and beat the slaves down, too. But you could be an Indian killer, be a nigger beater, and be a lazy ass white boy at the end of the day. And then get ripped off by the same rich white folks you work for, because guess what? They think they're smarter than you. And they'll hire another white person to put in front of you, so you got to go through that white person before you get to them. Once again, is this illustrated in the book? No. Hell no. But this is what I know about white people. And so because I know this about them, I can speak this about them. You know, I don't say things that are racially insensitive. I say things that are in tune to what my eyes have observed and what it is that people don't want to hear. Now, I could keep reading out the book, but a part of me doing a review is me telling you what it is that I gathered from reading. That's the whole point of all this. So I would be stupid or foolish to once again not say what it is that I'm not seeing. Here we go. Page 312, last paragraph. Class defines how real people live. They don't live the myth. They don't live the dream. Politics is always more about than what is stated or what looms before the eye. Even when it's denied, politicians engage in class issues. The Civil War was a struggle to shore up both the racial and class hierarchy. Did I not tell y'all they did that to kill off a bunch of their mulatto babies? You don't believe me? Let me read that to you again. The Civil War was a struggle to shore up both a racial and a class hierarchy. To shore it up means to close that gap, to make it small. Because if you killed off all the little mulattoes who thought that they were going to marry into white people, you carry off all the part blacks, who think they're going to marry into white people with money. You send your rich, because you got to think about it like this. I'm a rich white man. My daughter is swooning over this mixed boy who got a black daddy. So he's a nigger to me all the way. I'm going to make sure I do my best to make sure that that nigga gets sent to go fight the war, regardless if his mama is a landowner with slaves and all that or not. We're going to do our best. And if not, we'll figure out a way to keep that nigga away from my daughter. This is the kind of thinking that they have. Is that illustrated here? No, it's not. Hold on, here we go. The Confederacy was afraid that poor whites would be drawn in by Union appeals and would vote to end slavery because slavery was principally a reflection of wealthy planters' self-interest. Did you hear that? Because slavery was principally a reflection of wealthy planters' self-interest. So what they did was, what you guys understand is the Civil War is a war against Jewish slavers, okay, who had come here. They didn't fight against none of the Native Americans. They did their best to stay out of all that kind of stuff and slowly built an empire that couldn't be taken down. So the only way that they could do it in the North was to wage war on the South, you see. And the guys of we're fighting to get the slaves free is bullshit. It's bullshit. Okay? It doesn't even make sense. I want y'all to think about this. The Civil War could arguably be the biggest waste of blood ever, unless you're looking at it just like she just said. It was to shore up both a racial and class hierarchy. So we got to get rid of a whole lot of people. How do we do it? We start a war. You don't think the fucking North was sending down their mulattoes too to get mowed down, to get killed off, so that way they couldn't marry into certain populations? Then after the Civil War, hold on, you know what I mean? Just a few years later, you're talking about some of the harshest laws ever implemented in a country called the Jim Crow laws. Think about this for a moment. So that way they didn't have to worry about that. Yet people talk about bed winches as if that was like really like a super duper big phenomenon. It wasn't as big as y'all. You guys have to understand. The raping of slaves happened. The killing of slave masters also happened too. Okay? How do you think dudes became runaway slaves? For killing the master for having sex with his wife, whether or not she consented. Once again, it's unfathomable to believe that. None of these things are illustrated within white trash, but she illustrates the coming on to slaves and mulatto women by white men. And she illustrates this all throughout the book. She makes it a point to make it clear that crackers were men who were known for having little yellow brats. You understand? When you make it clear that a person's babies are quadroons, a quarter black, right? And this was the common cracker. The common cracker. What am I supposed to believe? That they're still not a quarter black, an eighth black, and the like? Because they are. Once again, they're the worst kinds of people ever because they're the kinds of people right now, black men and black women, right, who go and purposely breed out and have babies that don't look black just for the sake and purpose. So that way the baby's not black. And they pray to God that they can encourage their child to not have babies with black people either. Those are the same people. They don't want to be black. Okay? They don't want to be black. That's a form of wickedness that I can't even explain that. That they came here, their true genetic stock is us. Unless you know what, forget that. I won't go off on another tangent like that. But they don't want to be black. They want to be white. And these white trash people that we're reading about in this book are them. A lot of them. A lot of these people are people that have black grandmothers, whether they be a straight hair black woman or kinky haired or the tight little beads or the loose bushy curls, whatever kind of black woman or a black man who fits that diaspora. And the fairness in the statement is that these people are those people. They don't want to be black. They encourage their children to breed out. And then the Civil War did what to them? Got all their babies sent out to war to die. Wow. It's crazy. It's absolutely madness. But this is what we're reading about. You know, a nut job would tell you that's not what happened. A nut job would tell you that all those people are just white people you're looking at. How many people do you see today that are mixed that pass for white because they have white looking skin? Those pictures aren't a close up on every soldier. Right on. There was plenty of blacks that served in the Civil War. Please, mother suckers, don't ever tell yourself no lie like that, because that's what they want you to think. Give me one moment. Here we go. Page 314. Second paragraph. Under a related form of logic, manifest destiny became a desirable means to open land routes and squeeze bad breeds out of the country, presumably through Mexico. How can that be the case when this woman said that the Mexicans welcomed the Americans with open arms? In 1860, Daniel Hunley imagined that poor white trash would magically march right out of the United States. The old English idea of colonization required that the poor had to be dumped somewhere. The population had to be drained or strained or purged. The very same thinking fed social Darwinism and eugenics. If tainted women bred with regular people, they would undermine the quality of future stock. Either nature would weed out inferior stock or a human hand would have to intervene and engage in Galton's notions of controlled breeding, sterilizing the curs and morons among the lowest ranks. Now, just in case y'all ain't never heard what that word curs is, C-U-R-S, an aggressive dog or one that is in poor condition, especially a mongrel or a mutt. And what they mean is the mixed people. Understand, this whole book is written in language and code. So that way, when regular black folk read it, they don't know what the hell they're reading. Carrying on. It was easy to ignore inequality by claiming that certain breeds could never be improved. As W.E.B. Du Bois explained in 1909, Southern politicians were lost in the vacuity of illogic. They had fallen to the argument that any form of social intervention was pointless because man could not repel nature's natural force. Some races and classes were invariably stuck with their inferior mental and physical endowments. The South's claim to be protecting the public good by endorsing the existing regime that rewarded the already privileged with inherently anti-democratic. What that is saying is that by you going and making rules and legislation that goes against black people in particular, races of people, as he said, okay, classes of people or poor whites in this case, if they cannot compete with the other white people, they won't be able to. It's going against nature to try to mandate through law what nature will already do. Right. It's illogical. Hold on. Let's keep it pushing. Mm, mm. One moment. This has been an honor doing this. Here we go. One of the last parts. Well, let's go ahead and read it. The white poor have been with us in various guises, as the names that have been given across centuries attest. Waste people, offscourings, lubbers, bog trotters, rascals, rubbish, squatters, crackers, clay eaters, tackies, mudsills, scalawags, briar hoppers, hillbillies, lowdowners, white niggers, degenerates, white trash, rednecks, trailer trash, swamp people. They are blamed for living on bad land as though they had other choices. From the beginning, they have existed in the minds of rural or urban elites and the middle class as extrusions of the weedy, unproductive soil. They are depicted as slothful, rootless vagrants, physically scarred by their poverty. The worst ate clay and turned yellow, wallowed in mud and muck, and their necks became burned by the hot sun. Their poorly clothed, poorly fed children generated what others believed to be permanent, defective breed. Sexual deviance? That comes from cramped quarters and obscure retreats, distant from civilization, where moral vocabulary that dwells in town has been lost. Man, forget all that. They just didn't have no couth. They're uncouth. Once again, you see how this lady's trying to like dabber down the savagery of the white man, and she would call the other non-white people savages, barbarians, mongrels. They remain often, but did not disappear. Our very identity as a nation, no matter what we tell ourselves, is intimately tied up with the dispossessed. We are then not only preoccupied with race, as we know we are, but with good and bad breeds as well. She didn't say class, she said good and bad breeds. By calling America not just the land of opportunity, but the land of opportunity, we collectively have made a promise to posterity that will always exist the real potential of self propulsion upward. Those who fail to rise in America are a crucial part of who we are as a civilization. A cruel irony is to be found in the aftermath of the Hollywood film Deliverance, a gruesome adventure that exploited the worst stereotypes of white trash and ignored the poverty that existed in the part of the country where the movie was made. One actor stands out who was not a trained actor at all, Billy Redden. He played the iconic inbred character who sat strumming the banjo. He was 15 when he was plucked from the local Rabun County, Georgia school by filmmakers because of his odd look, enhanced with makeup. He didn't play the banjo, so a musician fingered from behind, and the cameraman did the rest. Interviewed in 2012 to mark the 40th anniversary of the film, Billy said he wasn't paid much for his role. Otherwise, the 56-year-old said, I wouldn't be working at Walmart right now. I am struggling really hard to make ends meet. The discomfort middle class Americans feel when forced to acknowledge the existence of poverty highlights the disconnect between image and reality. It seems clear that we have made little progress since James Agee exposed the world of poor tenant farmer in 1941. We still today are blind to the cool radiance of what is. The, the static rural experience, augmented by the persistence of class inflicted tropes and the voyeurism shock, is televised portraits of degenerate beings and wasted lives in the richest country that has ever existed. And what of Billy Redden? In 1972, a country boy who was made to fit a stereotype of the retard hillbilly idiot savant. Stop right there. Now, the word savant, in case you did not know, is a derivative of the word pundit or the word pandit. And we'll go into that a little bit later. One moment. Today, his mundane struggle to survive can satisfy no one's expectations because this story is ordinary. He is neither eccentric nor perverse, nor does he don a scraggly beard, wear a bandana, or hunt gators. He is simply one of the hundreds of thousands of faceless workers who work at Walmart. White trash is central, if disturbing, thread in our national narrative. Is a central, if disturbing, thread in our national narrative. The very existence of such people, both in their visibility and invisibility, is proof that the American society obsesses over the mutable labels we give to the neighbors we wish not to notice. They are not who we are, but they are who we are and have been a fundamental part of our history, whether we like it or not. I love the fact she called that boy Retard, idiot, savant. Now, you guys do understand why they would call him a retard and an idiot, right? See, for him to be slightly retarded would make him just a little slow. For him to be an idiot makes him actually stupid. But for him to be a savant now, right, means that he's a specialist at something. Now, why she didn't use the word pundit, I have no idea. But if I had to guess, right, it's because in her preface to the actual book, uh, 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 she uses the words pundit to describe the analyst. Here we go, right here, first page. This book was originally published in the middle of the contentious 2016 presidential election season. By describing historical patterns, it had effect of bringing some clarity to the otherwise feverish rhetorical muddle. And yet, in the aftermath of the election, conventional wisdom did little to improve upon the pre-election confusion. As ABC reported, Donald Trump's shocking electoral success represented the triumph of class over identity. It made no sense otherwise to analysts caught short. If the undeniable factors of racism and misogyny did not tilt the balance at the polls, then the surging return of class and politics must have. You hear how she used racism and misogyny as the backbone as to why fucking Donald Trump won? Here we go. The truth is, here we go. Searching for explanations is natural, but ABC did as punditry is wont to do and produced a false dichotomy in its effort to find a simple answer. Stop. Now let's, once again, the word pundit, okay? One of the words in the word pundit is savant, expert, maven, sage, guru, master, authority, specialist. What the fuck? Does anybody understand the beef there? Does anybody get that beef? My whole point of doing this review was to show you guys how ass backwards this motherfucker is. And her use of language, right? Because she uses so many different words that are synonyms to each other. If you don't understand that they're synonyms, she'll deceive you. Right. But don't nobody see the beef with that. I know y'all find the beef with it now, but that's an actual issue. For a person to sit there and tell you just any old thing. I mean, just any old thing. And nobody have an issue with that. Nobody find that the least bit suspicious. Is awkward. We're going to do a little summary right now of my review. First and foremost, white people come from, obviously, Europe. They were the waste people of the country. So they were the poor people of the country, or the disenfranchised. While having an opportunity to make something good happen for themselves, many of them squander that opportunity, right? The question I have to ask yourself this is that if you're saying that the land wasn't good, well, why were people able to buy their lands from them and then turn the lands into workable land, into land that was profitable? Just a question I wanted y'all to entertain. Secondly, while they're here, once they get here, the advent of slavery becomes this normal thing. Lazy whites become overseers. Less lazy whites decide that they would rather work the field because whipping on black folks ain't exactly their thing. You have to understand, not all white people take deep satisfaction in seeing black people hurt. You know, for all the pictures of all the white people that are gathered at those picnics of dead black people and things like that of the nature, or lynched black people, I should say, burnt bodies and disfigured and dismembered and however, castrated and mutilated bodies, right? That wasn't all the white people in that state there. That was just the white people that in that town, in that city, who felt the sentiment. That's not all the white people there. Now, once again, if y'all go back to my number of saying that only 2% of them are actually good people, 2%. What are the chances that some of that 2% are the same type of people who have what they call tainted genetics? They're not good people for the most part. They're not. They're opportunists, they're lazy, and they're greedy. This is what the book goes over. Yet she somehow placates them being prone to raping women who are indigenous to this land. She placates the fact that the white man stole the land from the indigenous. Yet these same people who are helping them take the land for the land grab somehow aren't able to get on plush pieces of land and turn the land over. No, it's because they don't know how. They don't have the ability and skill to be husbandmen. This is why they're not known for you. They're not known for having, civilizations of them that live totally off the vegetation that they plant. This is who they are as a people. Going further into the book, when you talk about the advent of the mulatto and the creation of that being and that beast, and how they use the mulatto as a weapon of sorts, and the scattered language of a cracker. Let's say a man is a mulatto, but he identifies as being a cracker. Is he any less black? No, he's not. So these are the things that we have to understand. Is people will identify with what they feel they are closest to or what they want to be the most of. These same white people, they never identified with blacks, yet they've been culture vultures since the very beginning, since they've been here. These blacks could make their own rum. They made their own liquors and drinks. They had the ability once again to use instruments. Singing was a part of the way that they alleviated the horrible existence and where in which they lived. The advent, the idea that these slave owners had these mistresses. These are ideas that aren't presented until certain times in the book, because at a certain time in America, it would have been horribly frowned upon to have practiced such things, even though all these white men practiced it. So once again, the idea or the credos that these white people have had some kind of moral upstanding over people that they were supposed to be masters to be people that they were supposed to be a savant to, a sage to, a guru to. You see, they weren't. They weren't at all. And in their activity of how they treated the slaves, they taught slaves things such as promiscuity, uh, 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 demand through violence. They taught them these such things. You see, they taught them the bastarding of a child. These are facets of things that they taught to these people. Once again, if I don't speak the language when I first get here, I did not teach myself the language. I learned it. So whatever I learned is what I'm going to do. If they had learned proper English, once again, they would speak proper English and use correct grammar. So every slave, once again, could not have been a slave of, oh, yes, a boss. I'm sure there were slaves who spoke proper English. I'm sure. I am sure of it. It's just one of these things that that they would want you to believe that we speak or we were supposed to be like that. But they have idiot retards like Stephen Fetchit, who this lady speaks on very vaguely in her book, and because we have sellout coon ass dudes like him, who once are the worst of our people, are the absolute worst. For a butter biscuit and a piece of fried chicken, will do anything. And because we have people like that, she's able to write this book. And while she is talking about white trash, she's able to trash the black man that built the foundation for her to be able to write the book that she's writing. Once again, if these are poor white people, what work did they do to build the country? They couldn't have been way more poor white people and just a few white people who were good folks, because just those few white guys couldn't have fought off all those Native Americans, nor built everything, nor been over all the slaves. Understand, what role did they play in all of this? Right. Because there's too much placating going on. There's too much, they did nothing in this book. They're hapless victims of their own circumstance. They're victims because, hold on, a government that sent them to be here as manure, fertilizer for the ground, they're just that. That's the disrespect. That's the love that we get. But white trash, apparently they are somehow a noble class of people who have been downtrodden and have made it through the muck. They have not. I didn't go over this. You know what I'm saying? I didn't go over parts in the book where it speaks on specifically how poor whites had become good at something for once, which was begging for government handouts. I didn't bother reading pages like that I had bookmarks on. I was like, you know what? It's not even that serious. It's not even that serious. I can just tell you out of my mouth because I know what I read. Sister, no, this book is telling us what it is. This book is saying what it is, and I'm just relaying the information, and it's just direly unfortunate. You know, once again, they accuse me as a black man of badgering white people, yet she wrote the book. I didn't write this book. And all I'm saying is that, does anyone find it just a little concerning that, well, her book is, at the very end of it, you heard how she placated the white man. She placated him. She exonerated his ass of all charges. Exonerated. Do you know how it feels to have a person use the words of a so-called black man like Du Bois, whatever you want to call him, and make it seem as if he in some way actually meant that Darwin was right, knowing that he wasn't? When earlier in her book, she made sure that he used an ironic tone, or that's how she perceived it. Understand this. Once again, this is just me reaching into my pockets, pulling stuff out. Anything I can get my hands on. It is direly unfortunate that this book couldn't have been more balanced. And when I say more balanced, it should have had far more instances of the white savagery, you know, and I mean true white savagery. And it doesn't have that in this book. It has once again these instances of violence where it's almost as if they're forced to be violent. But these guys were robbing train wagons since day one when they got here. They got off the ship and was like, I ain't doing shit. And they've been like that since day one. And they're like that to this day. When I hear Donald Trump, aka Pt.3, talk the stuff that he talks, I personally, all I'm hearing is a piece of white trash. That's it. Personally, I'm only hearing an actual, literal redneck trailer trash in the White House. You see what I'm saying? So for me, it's not a big deal. For everybody else, you know, I guess who care that much, it's a big deal, but it's like, there's really nothing to care about. These people are who they say they are. I would encourage all of you to buy this book, to read this book, and to embrace it. Embrace what this woman is saying. Embrace it. Once again, I, as a man, don't have the innate ability to want to stick up for a man just because he's a man. Okay? So I hope when you read this, and there's things that you read about the female behavior, you know, which she highlights very minimally, don't placate her for speaking on these things, because once again, it's easy for us to get lost in things like a word like misogyny, you know what I mean, or oppression. You feel me? It's easy to get lost in that, but let's keep our real minds and eye on the prize here, because this is a person who has sought to manipulate the masses by telling us that her people have never done anything wrong, essentially. The stealing of this land essentially wasn't wrong. I mean, like, she doesn't even talk about these things in depth. So it's like to speak on white trash and to marginalize and minimize everything else that surrounds it that is more important than the white trash. If they came here poor and they're still poor, what surprise is that? Somebody tell me. How am I supposed to be surprised that they're still poor? If they're not willing to take those chances that other white people take, lying, cheating, killing, stealing, they're not going to have nothing. They're going to be right where they're at. I hate to say it, but only certain people can work hard and actually get paid a good buck. Only certain people. And those are only certain jobs, and those are only at certain times. That's all circumstantial. You know, uh, I was telling Andre Wickham this. I will say this to y'all. Most white Americans that you look at are one paycheck away from being bona fide white trash. Black people have always been nothing but niggas. So, and not a big deal. But most of these white people that you know are one paycheck away from being out on the streets or back at home with their mamas and daddies. You know, this is a blessing to be able to render this to you guys. I know a lot of people want a rubric study review this page. Let's break down this page and what it means. But no, let's just get all over this thing and see how she don't make sense. She makes no sense. And anybody who wants to, talk about the book, they have to go into the fact that she used different sources that, number one, contradict each other and itself later at points, but she uses the measures in contradictory notes. So it's like, how can you do that and expect to be taken serious? And it's like, I mean, outside of dumbasses like myself who actually spent $10 for this book, who do you think was buying this book? Be honest with yourself. What color of skin of people do you think were buying this book? Right. Right. Exactly right. Sell out black folks at the bottom of that list. Okay. Black folks who want to know something, right above the sellout black man. Right above that person right there is everybody who wants to be a white person. And right above them are poor white people. And then right above them are white people who have a little bit. And then above them are white people who actually got something. And then above them are white people who got everything. Okay. Now, the reason why I don't include the other races of people who have something is because they don't matter. They're not going to buy a book like this because they don't give a fuck about white trash. They only care about their situation and maintaining their situation. If I could get people to care about themselves and do things that actually contributed to their better well-being and their health, I wouldn't be talking about something like this right now. But because it is going to be propagated to you later that these people are somehow hapless victims, I thought I'd do us the favor now and speak on it. Now, we all know that I normally don't even talk about stuff like this. I talk about the Bible. That is my bread and my butter. But when I do read a novel like this and it touches my soul to the point to where I'm like, I got to tell everybody about this one, And it started out just as a reading project that a Mr. BGS threw out there at me. And he didn't even throw it at me as a reading project. He just asked me had I ever read it and used certain points of the book, mainly that poor whites were starved out for work by slaves, which is totally unfucking true. It's untrue. It's untrue. Listen. Think about the numbers. Who was fighting the Indians? You guys got to think about that. That stuff never stopped. You have to have well-trained militias, all these types of things, you know. And if these men are true husbandmen, right, the couple that probably were, right, how often do you think that those guys were in fighting militias? You see what I'm saying? So that way they could self-sustain while they fought Native Americans. So you guys got to think that the best of them were isolated in places where they could be utilized. You follow me? If white trash dudes all across the board had excellent husbandry skills, white people right now would have the whole eastern board on lock, and they would be growing much more than tobacco over there. They would be growing all, I mean, you know what I mean? Like their farms, they would have figured out ways to capture rainwater. I mean, there's just so many different things that they would have done that I don't want to go into, that they should have done, that they could have done, but they did not do. So to be exonerated on all charges for their racist wickedness and for their tribal fuckery is beyond me. I don't see how a person could once again placate a man or woman for doing exactly what is wrong. It's wrong. It's not right. So we're here once again looking at books like this, and let's just, I mean, look, let's just read the back of it where it says surveying political rhetoric and policy, popular literature, and scientific theory over 400 years. Nancy Eisenberg destroys assumptions about America's supposedly class-free society. If you believe that America's class-free, which as a black person, if you believe that, that just says everything about you anyway, where liberty and hard work were meant to ensure real social mobility. She uncovers instead the crucial legacy of the ever-present poor white trash and the deeply entrenched class system that dates back to America's colonial roots, where a disposable white underclass was the price of doing business. We have long acknowledged racial injustice as an ugly stain in our nation's history. With Eisenberg's book, we still have to face the truth about the enduring malevolent nature of class as well. Fucking bullshit. Is that talking about white people raping Native Americans, eye gouging Native Americans and shit like that? No, it's not. Once again, if what they're doing is going to placate these people and exonerate them of all their charges, I can't dig it. I won't dig it. I don't dig it. And it's bullshit. If y'all ain't learned nothing, ain't heard nothing from listening to all this, please take this with you, because I'm getting ready to wrap it up. Number one, the best of them, and I mean the absolute best of them, will placate the absolute worst of them. Can you dig it? So the best white dude will still placate certain forms of wickedness that the white man, who he may not be as wicked as, or even agree with the wickedness too, he will placate this white man and somehow find a way to say that this is not this man's fault. Because of that, you should be ever weary and ever leery of these people. Number two, because they've spent so much of their history within this just this country dehumanizing other races of people, it should be in your best interest to dehumanize them as well. They shouldn't be human beings to you because they don't think you're one. I want y'all to understand this. Any man who can call black people 3/5 of a person, Thomas Jefferson, and then go home and be sleeping with a quadroon woman, making an 8th black babies. He himself is nothing. He is nothing to be esteemed. Nothing to be esteemed. And anybody who thinks like him. Once again, if you're 3/5 of a human being and a dog, a fucking canine, shares 75% of the genetics of a man, that makes a dog more man than a person who's only 3/5 of a human. Right. That shit is real. That is real. To the turf, it don't change. So you're talking about people who pretty much said that a dog is more human than you. Whether they had the scientific information to be implemented back then when they said that people were three-fifths of a human, right on. The fact that they could tell you that a dog now is 75% related to a human being means that back then it was no different. They were still 75% related. And that means that for that man to be three-fifths, that dog is more of a human than this man, though he looks not like a human at all. And that is the reality, the harshness of the real shit they have been saying to us for a long time. Many black people don't want to face. They don't even want to hear it. They can't stand it. They can't stand it. They make me sick. I'm cordial with white people because I have to be. Because where I live around a whole bunch of white people. Because I live in Washington, predominantly everybody here is white, with a splash of this and a splash of that. And I'm just telling the truth. Now, do other communities of people actually have footholds here? Yes. The Asian community has a large foothold with their churches and their businesses. Same thing with the Eastern Europeans, from the Moldavians to the Ukrainians to the Russians. Same things with the so-called Arabs or the Indians. Um, um, all of them. See what I'm saying? But still, though, once again, just to go back to the white trash aspect, is these are people who will say that you're not human. And everybody that I just named, who's not a white person, is not human to them. They're all barbarians to them. All of them. The Asian man is half barbarian. Wow. I read that to y'all the other day where she said that the Oriental had the audacity to think that he was superior to the white man and he was a half barbarian. Wow. Wow. Even though the word half barbarian is in quotations, this is how she really feels. You gotta understand, this is how white people really feel. They really feel like they fought for this country and that they did something. They didn't do shit. They stole it. They murdered and lied their way to the very top of the mountain. And now they're tumbling down. Because you got the nations of China, the likes of places like Russia, and the likes of even other places, where I won't even break into France right now, the Francs, and how they play a huge part in many of these things. However, all these different peoples that she brings up and she says all these things about, and she, once again, her whole point is to make it seem as if they were placating the white man. And then she would once again be hypocritical to say that the Mexicans, welcomed the American men there, right? And it was an idea to go and marry beautiful senoritas, ones who were well born. And it even spoke on that guy who went out to California to marry the Mexican farmer's daughter, and ended up being a patriarch out there in California. Little things like that, where it's like, why would they want to banish dudes to Mexico? Like, it sounds stupid, y'all. You see what I'm saying? Like, it sounds stupid. Like, they weren't trying to banish them to Mexico. You understand that? That's not what the idea was, though, to run them into the deep south. If they had fears of, even after the Alamo, if they had fears even after that these Mexicans could still spread out, them and their mixed babies and the mixed white babies and the mixed black babies and all that stuff, and they were going to spread out and somehow infect the country. I'm just wondering how they're going to force them into Mexico if they can't keep these so-called Mexicans out. I want y'all to think about this shit, man. It's like, who is she talking to? Who does she think she's talking to? Somebody who's not listening, or somebody, you know what I mean, who's clearly retarded? I'll be the retard idiot savant. Can you dig it? I'll be him. The guy who don't know nothing about how to play the banjo. All right? But don't tell me I don't know how to play the banjo. And all I'm saying is that if I can't do nothing else good, y'all, I knows how to understand and comprehend. That's the one thing I got going on is comprehension. So I might not be skilled at it at first, but if I can comprehend it, eventually I will manifest the skill for it. And I comprehend everything that she's saying, lying to us to make us believe something that ain't real, it ain't true. However, I'm about to get ready to cut out. 400-year untold history of class in America. That's what she called this. It is 400 years of, once again, her not even going back to the truth, for real, and her placating the robbery, mutilation, rape, starvation, oppression of, of, of peoples who were considered to be less than humans by people who were calling themselves all the way humans. So, with that said, should you feel bad for white trash where the best of their stock look down on everyone else as savages, and then the worst of the low class stock hated all the other people? You never get the idea that they just wanted everybody to go along to get along. Those white folks always hated black people. Always. And back to that joke I was going to say, that real rude ass joke. If you wanted to really get under a white man's skin back in the day, and I end on this, they would tell a man, and I'm not joking, they get into an argument, and they'd be like, your grandfather is a nigger. I promise on everything, y'all. That was like a major insult for a long time. Not your grandma, but your grandfather's a nigger. Because that ultimately meant that you're a nigger. Can you dig it? And this term white trash, cracker, is 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 a true embodiment of people who don't want to be black. So therefore they'd rather be white trash. And with that said, that's the end of this review. I thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Salute you. Peace out.